Okay, welcome to the 11th Fragger tutorial. Now by this point you should have tanks moving around, interacting with the tiles in the map. You should also have, it says trying to run it, you should also have bullets shooting and interacting with the tiles. Okay, so this is what we got. So we can shoot, we can move around. Can't go through blocks, but we can shoot bullets and they bounce off bouncy blocks, the red ones, destroy the brown ones. We can go across sand and it slows us down. We can go through gaps and appear on the other side. Okay, now it's a bit soulless, there's no sound, so let's start off by just adding some sound to a bullet. So if we go to bullet.cs, whenever we create a bullet, and this is the code at the top of bullet, we could play a sound effect. Okay, now if you look briefly at assets and go to the start preload a bit, I've actually loaded two sound effects. One that we're naming fire and one that we're naming explode. And these are just two sound effects that I took from some games, some actual arcade games. So let's just add that to the bullet. So we're going to play the fire sound. So back in bullet, at the bottom of our bullet creation code for our sprite, we're just going to say gm.audiomanager.play effect, and it was called fire. So we just give it the name of the sound effect. Let's run it and see what it does, and you'll see the nice effect. So when the yellow one does it. Okay. Right, the next thing to do, at the minute, those red bullets just going to go straight over the yellow tank. We need to get the bullet sprites hitting the tank sprites. Okay, so that's the next bit we're going to be doing. And in order to do that, in our bullet, so in our bullet code, just after that sound effect playing, let's just put a comment and put sprite collision stuff. By default, sprites aren't involved in collisions, so you have to explicitly tell them to be involved. So we say s.collisionActive equals true. Okay. The other thing we need is we need to set a type. When we detect collision between different sprites, we need to know what sprite we've hit. Okay. Now in my type.cs, just go to that, we've got the types for the wall. Remember, these are just representing numbers, but I've added a type, so let's just delete that. I've added a type and I'm going to put public const int, I'm going to put tank, call it tank shell, and I'm just going to set it to 100. That number means nothing, it's just a unique number that I've set up. Okay, right, back in my bullet, when I create my bullet, I'm going to say s.type equals type.tankShell. Okay, and then if I detect two sprites hitting, I will be able to find out that it's a tank shell and then react to it. So like, oh no, I've been hit by a tank shell, blow up. Okay, so that's all we need to do to the bullet code. Right, let's go to tank. Right, we need to go to the code where we create the tank. So let's use the picker and find create tank. There it is. Go to that code. Right, at the bottom then, I'm going to put a comment and put collision settings. Right, the first thing we need to do is say that we want this tank to be involved. So tank.collisionActive equals true. Right, we also want the collision engine to look at the tanks to see if they're being hit. So we're going to make it what we call collision primary. So it's a primary target. Okay, the bullets are secondary targets. They will be looked at because they're active, but the tanks are the ones that are going to respond to hits. Okay, now in order to respond to a hit, we need to set up a collision handler. So we're going to say tank.onCollision equals, I'm going to keep it simple, tank hit is what I'm going to call it. Okay, so we've got a subroutine we've got to create now. So just below my create tank subroutine, so just after the brace, I'm just going to say void tank hit. Make sure I'm spelling it with the same case because it's case sensitive, remember? Right. When the collision engine finds the collision, it will run this subroutine for us and it will pass us the primary sprite and the secondary sprite that have hit. Okay, so we know that the first sprite we get passed is going to be the tank because they're the only collision primaries we've got. But we don't know what the other sprite is. Well, we do because we've only got bullets, but we might have different types of things flying about. Okay, so I'm just going to call that parameter other. Okay. Right. Standard practice when we're doing this is to do a switch. So we say switch other.type. So what type are you? And then I can make decisions, a bit like when we did the tile collisions and we for the bullets, and we said, right, well, what type of tile is it? If it's this tile, do that, etc. Okay, so we're going to do the same sort of focus. So we're going to say case type dot tank shell. Put my break in. Right, so what do we want to do if we've been hit by a tank shell? Now, we could have shot the bullet ourselves. We don't want to blow ourselves up with our own bullets. Okay, even though that's realistic, but we're not bothered about that. So when we created the bullet, if we quickly flick back to bullet.cs, we did, so here's bullet, we had this line, we stored the player that shot the bullet, and we can retrieve that information now to find out if we shot the bullet or somebody else did. Okay, so we're going to say, right, shooter, can't spell, so we're going to need to store a reference to the tank that shot the bullet, and we do it like this. We're going to say tank other.associations not. Okay, because that's where it's stored. Okay, we now need to make sure that that tank that shot this bullet isn't us. So we're going to say if shooter is not equal to this. Remember, this refers to the tank that's been hit, because that's what we're creating the code for, a tank. So just leave that if. I'm just going to put a comment above that, and I'm going to say if shooter is not me, then we've been hit by an enemy. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to kill the bullet. So other.kill, but we also need to kill the tank. Okay, so our tank sprite we have to kill, and we'll leave it at that and try it and see. Let's just see if it actually works. So let's run it. Right, let's play the game. So right, I'm probably that's not going to hit that one, but this next one will. Right, so this should kill the yellow tank. There you go, it's killed. Now, the yellow tank, press the space. Even though the tank's dead, I'm still shooting, which is a bit stupid. Okay, I can't hit it again because it's not on the screen. It doesn't exist, it's not being drawn, but I can still shoot, which is a bit daft. So I need to do something to record whether the tank's alive or dead. Okay, so what we need to do, inside tank, we need to create a boolean variable. So at the top we're going to say bool alive. Okay, I'll just put a little a equals false. Okay, so we're going to use this to record whether the tank is actually in existence, and then what we'll do is we'll alter the input code so that we only allow you to use the keys if you're alive. Right, so by default it's dead, false. So when we create our tank, so in our collision sections of create tank, this is create tank, there it is, we're just going to say alive equals true. Alright, now in my input code, so that's check input, so let's use the picker to find that. So this is check input of the tank. We're going to wrap all of this in an if. We're going to say if alive, then yes, you can do all these key tests. And if you're not alive, you can't. So that little bit of logic should hopefully stop the yellow tank shooting. So let's just run it and see if that works. Remember, if I'm going a little bit too fast, just rewind the vid. Right, so let's move forward so we can shoot that yellow tank. Bang, you're dead. Right. Okay. Even though I've got all that logic there, I haven't set anything to force when I've shot the tank for it to be not alive anymore. Okay. Right, there's an easy way of doing this. So we've got the logic there in place, but we actually need to, when we hit the tank, we could put it here. We could say alive equals false. Okay, so let's just prove that that works. But that isn't the best place to put it, and I'll show you a better way of doing this in a sec. But I just want to show you that that logic does work. So shoot me blocks, go forward. There's the bullet that's going to get him. Bang, he's gone. Pressing space, it isn't shooting. Okay, so that logic's working. Right, we're not going to do this. When we kill a sprite, we can run what I call a funeral. Okay, and a funeral can do all the things that we need to. I create an explosion graphic, play a sound effect to say we've been blown up, etc. All in one central place. So if we go back up to create tank, so let's use the picker to find this, create tank, and in these collision settings that we're setting up, we're going to say tank.onFuneral. So when it's been killed, run, what should we call it? I'm going to call it death. Okay. Right, I've got to create this subroutine, so I'm just going to do it just above tank hit. So I'm going to say void death sprite s. So when the sprite is killed, the tank sprite, the engine will run this subroutine and give us the tank sprite, which we're calling S in this instance. Okay, so this is where we can say alive equals false. So we say, right, oh, that tank's dead. We can also play a sound effect. So we're going to do audio manager, play effect, and I think I called it explode. If you put a name that doesn't exist, you won't hear a sound. Alright, so let me just double check in the assets. Yeah, I called it explode. Okay, so let's run that now. The reason we've done that funeral is because we actually want to respawn the tank, and that's again a nice central place to do it. Right, so play the game, shoot a block, shoot the yellow tank. Boom, we get the explosion. Can't shoot, can't do anything. The input code doesn't work for that tank now because it doesn't exist. Right, what we need to do is respawn it. And in order to respawn the tank, we run create tank. That's its whole purpose. So all we've got to do here in our death routine is say create tank, and that will respawn the tank. There is a side effect to that, and I'll show you that in a second. So play the game, shoot, go through. Right, I'm going to shoot the yellow tank. Hopefully this bullet will get it. Ah. And it's on the screen instantly. And we shoot it lots of times. Not good. Okay, so we want a little bit of a delay. So let's make a delay. And it's easy to do a delay. So instead of putting create tank, we're going to say gm.eventManager, because this is the timing system, and we're going to say add event and raise it once. So we can say, right, count down a clock. When that clock stops, do something. So we can say new event. Right, let's do it after 4 seconds. Give it a name, spawn, because that's what we're doing. And we're going to run. And what it wants, it says it wants an event handler. Now a tick handler or an event handler is any subroutine that's got no parameters. And luckily for us, we wrote create tank and it's got no parameters. So we can use create tank directly. Okay. Right. So all we've done is just said, right, I want to run an event and I want it to happen once after 4 seconds. And I want you to run create tank. Okay, so let's run it and see, make sure it works. Shoot me block. So I'll shoot a load of bullets off. No, the yellow tank's gone. But he's back on now. Shoot him again. He'll respawn in 4 seconds. Bang, he's there. He's away. He's trying to get out of the way. The other problem, and I'll demonstrate it now. I'm just going to drive that red tank up there. Drive the yellow one back up. Right, I've shot him. Can't get him yet, but he's going to spawn in a minute, and I'm going to shoot him again before he gets a chance to move. That's also a bit lame. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce a timer. So let's have a look at the create tank routine. Right, these new collision settings, we've made it active straight away. We don't have to do that. Okay, we could say, you know what, I don't want you to be active to start with. I want you to flash, which is what we normally do on games to show that you're invulnerable. So we're going to be invulnerable for a bit. Okay, then we're going to make you active. Alright. So in order to do that, we need to create first a subroutine. So just above our death subroutine, let's create another subroutine. And we're going to say activate collisions. And we're going to say sprite s. Okay, and all we're going to do is we're going to say s.collision active equals true. Okay. Leave it at that for now. Right, so what we want to do is when a tank first starts, we want it to flash. So in order to do that, we turn on the timer system. Now this is the same system that we use for the bullets to kill them after a certain amount of time. So it's just another example of that. So we're going to say timer dot stop after. So this is going to make it flash and then stop. So after, let's give you 3 seconds of grace, and then we're going to flash the sprite on the screen for 1/4 of a second, off the screen for 1/4 of a second. Again, you can play about with all these values. Now the other thing we want to do is we want to say, right, well hang on a minute then. So when it stops flashing, that's when I want to run this subroutine, activate collisions. So I'm going to say tank, dot timer, dot on timing done equals activate collisions. If I can find it, there it is. Okay, so I'm saying run that subroutine when the timer's finished. So after that 3 seconds, it's going to run that subroutine. What we must do in activate collisions is make sure that that timer's gone. Alright, otherwise it keeps triggering. So we're going to say s.timer.onTimingDone equals null. And that obliterates the timer for us. Okay, so when the tanks come on screen, they're going to flash and they're not going to be hittable. Okay, I didn't think we'd get all this done in one video, but I think we have actually. Let's just see if it works. So F5 it. So I'm trying to keep this in simple little chunks. That's why I've broken these videos up. Okay, right. So there they go, flashing there. Right, shot through the block. Right, so I'm going to shoot the other one. Obviously, it's going to be off screen for 4 seconds, and it's going to come back on, and I'm going to try and shoot it while it's flashing. got a problem there. Let's get a bit nearer. Oh, I know what it is. Right. What we haven't done is we haven't at any point said collisions are no longer active for this tank. So when we set this up, so we're back in create tank, we need to make sure that instead of saying collision active equals true, we say collision active equals false. Okay, because this turns it on. So we already had it turned on, so it had no effect really, that. So let's try it again, just make sure that that silly logic error has been corrected. Okay, I'll drive the red tank right up this time because it'll make it a bit easier to do it. It'll chug. Ooh, it's working. Right, so we're driving along. So we can move while we're flashing. 3 seconds is probably too long. So I'm going to sit right up behind the yellow tank, shoot it. Right, he's a goner, so when he's flashing I'm going to try and shoot him. The bullets just go straight through, but as soon as he's solid, bang, dead again. Okay, right, we're going to end that video there. The next thing we need to do is scoring and displaying the scores on screen, and we're just about done. And then the next video needs to be, after that, viewports. Okay, thank you very much.